Hey everybody, we're the Jersey Comic Crew, and today's video we're giving you everything that you need to know about The Mandalorian before you watch Season 2. Stay tuned to learn everything you need.
Hey guys, we're the Jersey Comic Crew. Thanks so much for coming back. Me and Rob are going to talk all the things you need to know about Season 2 right now with a recap of Season 1. And make sure you guys pay attention. Make sure you guys come back as well because we will be doing more videos after every episode of Season 2 drops. And I apologize for the echoey sound on my end, moving to a new studio. So it'll be great in a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Just bear with me for the next couple weeks. And so let's take it away, Rob. Give us everything from Season 1 that we need to remember. It's been a couple of months going into Season 2. Let's hear it.
Giving you the quick recap here, guys. So, Mandalorian Season 1, the first episode was the introduction to the character of the Mandalorian, and we see him taking various jobs to see how effective he is. Towards the end, he gets one of these jobs to find the asset. He learns that the asset is the child, and that's where we get introduced to Baby Yoda. So, during the adventures, we move on to the next episode. The biggest thing that happens here, ladies and gentlemen, is you see that Baby Yoda does have force powers. He was able to lift up that giant creature, which is called a mudhorn, which becomes important later in the series because when he becomes the clan of two with the child, that is the insignia on the shoulder, which is really cool. So, the next part, Mando brings the asset, the child, back to the client, and he decides that this isn't right. He can't just give up this kid. He fights off a couple of stormtroopers. He fights off members of the bounty hunter, and then he leaves off the planet. And that was a lot of cool fight scenes to see. The Mandalorian versus other bounty hunters. We saw the jetpack scene. We saw, all this craziness go on. It really got us hyped in this. Next, it takes us to the next episode where we meet a former rebel shock trooper named Cara Dune. So that's the big buff Amazon woman that, with the help of Mando, they free a village. Then it gets us into this weird little space odyssey, ladies and gentlemen, where they go out into outer space. They release some people from prison. Doesn't really play into the overall arc of the main Season 1, but it's definitely going to set seeds for Season 2. And if you guys watch us next season, you're going to find all that out. So, it takes us now to Episode 7. This is the penultimate episode. This is where we see Greef Karga. Now, if you guys don't remember who Greef Karga is, he's the guy that keeps calling him Mando. And do that hand thing, baby. That's that gentleman, Apollo Creed, right? He gets Mando to come back saying the Imperial force at the home base of the Mandalorians was, they're overrun. They need his help. This whole time Greef Karga was planning to betray the Mandalorian because he broke the Mandalorian's code. He broke the bounty hunter's code, right? But the child performed another force miracle and used his abilities to force heal. Something that, was mentioned in comics. Something we really haven't seen on the big screen. So, since the Baby Yoda saved Greef Karga's life, he decided to change his mind, become good, work with the Mandalorian to take back the city. So, the final episode of the season, guys, this is the big battle scene that we've all been waiting for. Cara Dune, Greef Karga, the Mandalorian, the child, and, of course, the robot from the first one, IG-11, are fighting against Moff Gideon and his forces. Moff Gideon was a key factor in the Imperial Army before it fell. When the Empire fell, Moff Gideon still had retainer of some stormtroopers to kind of go in his glory to rebuild the Empire. We know that Moff Gideon wants the child desperately and is trying to get it back. And towards the end of the episode, we do see Moff Gideon survive the attack and final confrontation with Mandalorian with his jetpack, the child, and the rest of that ragtag group. And he pulls out the iconic dark saber. Now, this is a dark lightsaber sword, a medieval lightsaber, if you will, that is going to carry weight into the rest of the season. So that's your kind of quick recap of Season 1, guys. Now, that I'm sure has refreshed a lot of your memory of some of the key points in here.
Refresh mine.
Now, what we want to do next, guys, we want to move on to characters that we're going to see in Season 2 that we haven't seen yet, where we've last seen them in the Star Wars franchise. Does this sound right to you, Chris?
Yeah, and it's characters. There's a lot of new characters. There's a lot of old new characters, the characters we've seen in other properties that are going to be coming into Season 2, and we need to break them down and let you know why they're so important. So when you and your friends watch the show, you can be the one to tell them.
So we last saw Sabin Wren, who is going to be played by Sasha Banks. The last time we saw her was at the end of Rebels. She was going into the wild space in search for Ezra.
Yes, and Sabine, we like Rob said, most likely played by Sasha Banks. We see her in the trailer for Mandalorian Season 2 in this kind of hooded cloak figure. A lot of people thought it was Ahsoka. It's actually Sasha Banks, most likely as Sabine Wren. Is she following the Mandalorian? Is she looking for the Dark Saber? She must know by now she's the Dark Saber. Also, how did she get back from wild space? That's a storyline we don't know. Did they find Ezra? Did they not? She being back also relates to Ahsoka being back as well, Rob.
Now, was it Sabine in possession of the Darksaber at one point, right?
Yes, she was during Rebels. And really quickly, that was passed down. The original Darksaber was created by the first ever Mandalorian Jedi named Tar Vizsla.
Yeah.
Hundreds of years ago. And he had the Darksaber until he passed. It was kept at the Jedi Temple. The Mandalorian stole it, brought it back, and passed it down through the Vizsla kind of bloodline until it became the property of Pre Vizsla, who was the leader of Death Watch. And if you watch Clone Wars, that is what Darth Maul takes over and also takes possession of the Darksaber. So when Darth Maul eventually has it, it ends up on Dathomir, his home planet, where Sabine gets it originally before giving it to Bo-Katan.
Okay, so in this series that we're going to see that we know of, Sabine Wren was the last to have it before she passed it off to Bo-Katan.
Yes, so Sabine had it as the leader kind of Mandalore during Rebels. She didn't want it. She saw Bo-Katan as the true leader of Mandalore, especially in the fight against the Empire, and gave it to Bo-Katan to lead the rest of the Mandalorians into battle against the Empire.
Well, you mentioned Ahsoka, because, thank you very much, because that's the next character I want to talk about. So Ahsoka Tano, we also saw her at the end of Rebels. She was also going into the wild space to look for Ezra.
Yes, and I know a lot of us saw her also because they did the last part of Clone Wars.
Yes.
But as Rob said, Rebels is later in the timeline, so that's technically the last time we saw her. Also going with Sabine and everyone into wild space to look for Ezra. So obviously they are back from that trip. And as we know, Rosario Dawson's supposed to play her, and they're keeping it very hush-hush. But that's going to be, not only, in my opinion, the connection to Sabine, Bo-Katan, possibly even Baby Yoda, because as we saw in the trailer, you know, this Jedi, this Force wielders, they're kind of these myths, right? They're like these weird, creepy wizards who no one likes to talk about anymore.
Yeah.
And for me, Ahsoka is going to be that connection with knowledge base that Jin Darn and the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, as he's trying to get him back to his planet, might need to go find Ahsoka as, hey, you seem like the only person left alive who has any knowledge of this Jedi stuff. What is it?
Well, you mentioned Bo-Katan. You know, that's also going to be a key factor of a character who's going to be in this season. So Bo-Katan, who's going to be played by Katie Sackhoff, or at least we believe, she was last seen in Rebels receiving the Darksaber from Sabine, becoming the leader of the Mandalorians in the fight against the Empire. So somehow we're going to see the transition from Bo-Katan having the lightsaber to Moff Gideon. So maybe the Mandalorians fell, Moff Gideon grabbed it, and now he's using this as his stepping stone and power to rebuild the Empire, maybe under his image. I don't know.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Rob. That is, to me, the only logical scenario for each, right? And Katie Sackhoff's wonderful. She did the voice of Bo-Katan in Rebels as well, so that's a great connotation, bringing her into live action. And yeah, she was the last one we know to have it in that crazy long list of hand-me-downs that I listed before.
Yeah.
And not only that, but we have to either see flashbacks or a story being told of how she got it taken from her, whether it's Moff Gideon stormed the remainder of Mandalore, killed a bunch of people and took it. There's a possibility she's also dead, right? It could be flashbacks and he kills her and takes it. Or the other side of it is, during this battle or struggle, do we get Moff Gideon taking the saber because the Darksaber is the symbol of the leader of Mandalore? Is he now leading this secret faction of Mandalorian / Imperial epic guards in his quote-unquote army? So that, I think, is going to be really cool to see.
Well, you mentioned the dead, Chris, and we have to talk about this person who's dead, who's somehow coming back in some form or fashion. The great and legendary Boba Fett, who's going to be played by Tamora Morrison, if I pronounce that right.
Yes,
So the last time we saw him in canon was in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, falling into the Sarlacc pit. We all know that fantastic scene. He dies, and he's one of the coolest characters. So, did he secretly survive the pit, and we didn't know about it this whole time, and he's secretly working to bring back the Mandalorian up to the rightful place in the hierarchy? Maybe we're seeing him in flashbacks. You know, that answers the answer to those questions we're going to get in Season 2.
I think you're onto something there. I think flashbacks are going to be a key. I think for the last almost 40 years since Empire and Return of the Jedi came out, since we saw Boba Fett, we're introduced to that Mandalorian armor and that emotionless face into him, quote unquote, dying. In legend stories and books, he survives and comes out of the Sarlacc pit and seeks revenge. I think we're going to see a lot of that now. I think Boba's going to be pissed. He's going to be looking for his old armor. He's going to be hearing about this Mandalorian with this maybe Jedi little thing and is like, how dare you be a Mandalorian and help these people?
Yeah, he's kind of like the pillar of the Mandalorians, right? And he's going to directly compare himself to Mando, right? He's like, listen, I lay the pathway. You're supposed to do what I'm doing, and you're not being the Mandalorian, the bounty hunter that you're supposed to be. And it's kind of like, well, I'm going to set my own path. And I feel like that's what this story is ultimately going to be, because the character progression that we got for the Mandalorian's character in Season 1, it was small, right? It was more introducing us into that world. But we did see him become a little boy, so his parents died by droids. That's why he's afraid of droids. And even at the end, he trusted a droid to save him, right? So we can see him changing, and I think this is going to be another avenue where he breaks away from the mold to become his own person, which I'm really excited for.
Yeah, and they have to make them different, right? Because they're going to look so similar.
Yes.
And Din Djarin is going to have his own path with Baby Yoda and finding those Jedi to bring him back to his family or whatever the case is. And I think, honestly, Boba Fett's going to be basically the badass Punisher of this show. I think his ties to everyone are broken. The Empire did not help him out of that Sarlacc pit. The Jedi basically put him there. Luke Skywalker
that we know. Maybe Moff Gideon saved him, and that's how he found out the Darth Saber was a thing. It could be. And maybe Boba Fett's going to be hunting for the Dark Saber because he thinks he's the rightful one to lead Mandalore. Maybe. I think now here's a big one. Okay.
So there are rumors, and actually not rumors, it's official. We know that Obi-Wan Kenobi's getting his own series on Disney Plus.
Eventually, yes.
And they're going to start filming later this year, if not next year. And we do know that Ewan McGregor went on set of The Mandalorian to try on his old Jedi robes from episode 2 and 3.
Nice.
And he was kind of walking around the Mandalorian set, and everyone was kind of like, oh my God, Obi-Wan Kenobi's here. Is there a possibility of Obi-Wan possibly being connected to Boba Fett? Because the first time we see Boba Fett is technically episode 2 as a child with Jango Fett on the planet Kamino, when him and Obi-Wan fight. And we know Boba Fett does not like Jedi. Is there kind of this, maybe a flashback scene of him, fighting off Kenobi and maybe the search for Kenobi, which may tail into Obi-Wan series possibly?
I like that idea. You just have to do it in a very specific way, because you don't want to take too much attention away from what's currently going on. The fact that you have Boba Fett in this show to begin with is like you're introducing, Superman in a Supergirl show. It's a dangerous can of worms that you're opening, because everybody already has this established fan base with the bigger iconic character. You're trying to build up this other character, and now if you have a flashback of Boba Fett fighting or doing something with Obi-Wan,
that's all everyone's.
That's all. Yeah, exactly. That's all everyone's going to care about, and they're going to move forward with that. I don't think Star Wars is going to do that. I don't think we're going to get that scene, because I think the child, they knew how big it was going to be. But if you ask anybody about the Mandalorian, the first things out of their mouth is going to be Baby Yoda, right? Which they did want to sell toys, but Baby Yoda at this point is almost more dominant than the Mandalorian. So if you have another thing that's more dominant than the main character, that might, kick sand underneath of the show, right? That might take out the pillars and base. So they might not do that just because of, how much they want to put into this character. And I could see them wanting to do a lot more with this character.
Touche. Absolutely. No, I agree.
So last things, guys, we want to talk about are our crazy predictions for season 2. I mean, we kind of already touched base a little bit on that. I just want to give my 2 cents before I let Chris blow all of our minds, because I'm sure he has some zingers in his pocket.
Zing.
I view this season is going to be, it's a 2-parter. I think it's going to be a search for the sword, right? Kind of like an Arthurian tale, like a King Arthur tale, right? Everybody's going after the sword and the stone, and we're trying to find everybody's connection to the sword and why they're doing it. So I feel like that's going to be a key factor. Another thing that we have to keep in mind, right? Baby Yoda and Mando, they're on a journey to find the Baby Yoda's family. Does that mean other of his species or Jedi, right? So that's very open to interpretation. So it might be to search for other Jedi. So Mandalorian has to go find Jedi to kind of reconnect Baby Yoda, so that way he could get taught in the mystical ways. The Jedi are thought to be dead, just like this baby. I don't know. I think we're going to get the answer of what he's searching for by the end of season 2.
Ooh.
I don't think we're going to know what he's searching for, what the family actually means until the end.
Okay.
I think this season's going to
focus... Wait, the family, Baby Yoda's family?
Baby Yoda's quote-unquote family, whether it's Jedi or his race. I think we're going to get that answer at the end of season 2. I think season 2 is more going to be about who had the sword last, why is the sword important, all this kind of that, and like, I want the sword, no, I want the sword, I'm the leader, no, I'm the leader. A lot of like cool fight scenes and stuff like that. That's what I'm thinking. All right. Okay. What's your theory?
I like that.
Thank you.
So there's also, so I have a different couple of theories that all tie in together, obviously.
Cool.
I think the main story has to be, like you said, Mandalorian, Baby Yoda, kind of our, lone wolf and cub scenario.
Yeah.
Searching for his family, finding purpose, their relationship growing as more of like a father-son complex thing. And that will lead them to that ice planet. Now, that ice planet we've seen in the trailer a couple times where he's kind of flying the Razor Crest through, that looks a lot like the same planet if you played Jedi Fallen Order. It looks like the planet that Cal Kestis goes to find kind of one of the last surviving Jedi temples where he gets his own lightsaber crystal.
I remember that. Okay.
So if that somehow connects, because Jedi Fallen Order, even though it's a video game, it is in canon. It's part of the Star Wars lore.
Mm-hmm.
If they bring just that little planet in there, that could be one where Ahsoka's hiding. Because also, if you remember, I mentioned Ahsoka at the end of Clone Wars. We last see her on an ice planet where Vader goes to look for her and he finds her lightsaber. Great ending. But if that's the same planet, maybe Ahsoka's hiding out in that Jedi temple trying to learn all the things that have happened as she's been gone in wild space. And she has no idea what's happened with the Empire.
And Mando connects with Ahsoka.
And maybe Ahsoka tells her, hey, he could use the Force and you're the Mandalorian. What is the one object that brings those two things together? The Dark Saber.
Oh.
I think Mando has to be the one to wield the Dark Saber, and I would love it if Ahsoka trained him to use it.
Oh, Chris, that can't
Which is
happen.
Also why the hint was this shirt of Yoda training Luke Skywalker.
Dude, that would be mind breaking. That would take the show in a whole nother level than I even thought the show was going to be.
I know, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And I also think Boba Fett being like, oh, so all of you moved on and forgot about me, becomes Mando's foil and is like, no,
He's the
Dark
villain.
Saber.
He's the antagonist. Oh, my God.
With all the other kind of, he's calling in favors to anyone left, which, if you notice, Michael Biehn was cast for season 2. Michael Biehn from the original Terminator kind of has that like grizzled face. There's a character in the comics we've talked about a couple times, Beirut Valance.
Mm-hmm.
He's like almost like very close to Vader, half cyborg, he's got cyborg parts, almost like Cyborg from DC Comics. He has a gauntlet that turns into a gun. He could be that character. Maybe Boba Fett's hiring whoever he knows from his past. Dude,
you took the show from 0 to 100 real quick. Like I thought my thing was pretty cool, but like that's all right. Touche, cool. All right. Then your Star Wars, I guess.
Hey, I know my Star Wars. So basically, and again. Obviously, this is spoilers in case it happens. Don't know if it's going to happen, but that would be awesome. Also, backdooring into a lot of these characters having their own series, right?
Of course, yeah.
I honestly can't see Bo-Katan, Sabin Wren, Ahsoka Tano, Boba Fett, all these major characters taking up the show. It still has to be about Din Djarin, Baby Yoda, his cast of characters, right? And Moff Gideon and how that plays into it. So maybe we get Ahsoka for 1 or 2 episodes. Maybe we get Boba Fett in bits and pieces. I can't see them. They can't take over that season.
I think Sabine Wren and Bo-Katan are flashbacks.
Well, I think Sabine Wren's current because we saw in the trailer during their travels. I think Sabine and Ahsoka are current. I think Bo-Katan. Personally, I think Bo-Katan's dead. I think that's
so
going to be flashbacks.
I think Moff Gideon killed her.
Agreed. I think she's totally dead. Me and Rob are in agreement as well. I think you're going to see flashbacks of either Moff Gideon taking that dark saber, whoever else is helping him in that battalion, and maybe that's where Boba Fett gets the trail of where that dark saber last left off, because he was like, "Hey, maybe go see where Bo-Katan is." Finds her like everyone destroyed.
Dude, what if before we get talk about you guys, what if Boba Fett we only see at the end of each episode, kind of like almost like a Marvel after the credits thing, like a quick thing, and he's on the trail to find it, and like we don't see him, like he's a threat looming, like he's coming closer and
that's
closer.
What I think he's going to be, like the Punisher.
Yeah, he's like, oh, they were here. Okay, now I need to go, and everyone's like, are they going to fight Boba Fett? Is Boba Fett going to come in this episode? Oh my God! While
Din Djarin is at this Jedi temple with Baby Yoda, as Baby Yoda's getting a little more powerful, and like they're both kind of learning the Jedi ways.
Ahsoka's training him in the Force, maybe.
Like Ahsoka's more like training Din Djarin as a true protector with this dark saber, and Boba Fett is looming in the background as getting closer and closer on the trail. Because Boba Fett was amazing as a tracker, right?
Yeah, he was.
Throughout the original series, you see him as a tracker, and throughout season 1 of Mandalorian, Din Djarin is getting upgraded, and he's learning to do new things, whether it's the gun or the jetpack or whatever it is, fighting the what's it called, the beast that becomes his logo. So all these things, the Mudhorn. Yeah. So all these things, it kind of progresses like that. I think it'd be awesome to see Ahsoka in the teacher role as well, because we've only really seen her in the apprentice role. So that would be amazing, and then Ahsoka gets her own show.
So guys, as we're getting closer and closer and closer to season 2, we want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. That's been our video on everything that you need to know, and I'm sure there's some stuff that we forgot, but this should get you ready for season 2. Let us know your theories on the show before it comes out down below. Thank you so much.
And guys, make sure you please give us a thumbs up, like. It really helps the channel a lot, especially as we move into a new studio with better sound quality. And don't forget, if you're new, to subscribe, share with your friends, ring that bell so you know every time, especially when new Mandalorian episodes come out, and we're going to talk about it with Easter eggs. And we will see you next time.
Before you go, you're going to see our logo here and some more videos. Check them both out. I'm sure you're going to like it. Thank you.